What's up, everybody? It's Troy Cartwright. Welcome back to 10-Year Town. Before we get started, we got two small housekeeping items for you. Number one, if you haven't already, go join the 10-Year Town community, which you can do at 10yeartown.com. That'll keep you updated on the latest episodes, live events, stuff like that. Number two, if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoy this episode or a previous episode, do us a huge favor and send it to a friend. It doesn't cost anything, just a little bit of time, but it helps us out a ton. Thanks. Today's guest is a one-of-a-kind songwriter and artist. I am talking about Steven Wilson Jr. His record, Son of Dad, turned 1 year old last week, and if you have not listened to it, I'm telling you, it is one of the best records I've heard in a long time. This guy has such an inspiring story. He has such a unique sound, and I am so honored to have him on the podcast this week. So without further ado, here he is, Steven Wilson Jr. Yeah, what was the festival that you just played?
Visceral horses.
Was it sick? It looked sick.
Nuts. Yeah, it was sick.
What
down with the sickness.
I'm consuming all of this like through social media. So you played a show.
Correct.
And then did you come out with Hardy?
I did.
What did you play?
Father, son. Per his request, I gotta say, it was
That's sick.
pretty insane. Yeah, are we on right now? Is this happening?
We're just rolling.
Or is this really rolling?
I mean, we'll just start it, you know,
cool.
Whenever it makes sense.
No, I actually, so Hardy and I played that song while we were on tour this year.
Yeah.
One of the last show of the tour, he had me come out and sing it, and it was a really special moment. And we were playing Faster Horses the same day as Hardy was headlining, and he was like, "Hey, I want to be at your show," because I was playing at like 6:30, and I was like, "Hell yeah, would you want to come and sing Father's Son?"
Yeah.
And so we'd also played it in other fashions as well, so we knew the song well. And he was like, "I would love to, but actually, would you want to come play it during my set?" And I was like, "Okay, yes, I'll do that. I would do that instead."
Yeah.
And so I played that song in front of like 45,000 people. Like,
what's that feel
about
like?
36 hours ago, and
Dang.
if that even, and don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah.
It was like, had kind of an unexplainable peace about the moment, because usually I'll work myself up into a frenzy of like anxiety and emotion, because I'm not really supposed to be here, as you know. And so it really, I don't know, I was able to let go in that moment in front of the biggest crowd I've ever been, like twice the biggest crowd I've ever been in front of. Wow. And then, you know, they all had their lights in the air, and it was like it's crazy how like I felt like I was at Bluebird Cafe.
Yeah. In
the strangest way, just playing in front of 85 people.
Yeah.
Times whatever it requires to get to 45,000.
I don't want to do the math.
Yeah, I don't
It's
either.
At least times 45. I know that.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of numbers.
That's beautiful, dude.
Yeah, it was. It was a really beautiful experience. That's the best word for it. And
well, that
dude, he's incredible.
Well, dude, he loves you, and
the feeling's mutual.
Yeah, you can see it, and it's I don't know, man. I feel like your whole ride these last 2-3 years has been kind of one like giant, almost like cosmic thing of it just all working out exactly the way it's supposed to.
Well, if it is, I'm hanging on for dear life.
Are you having fun though?
I am. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun.
That's good.
It's really, it's all like an answer to a prayer that I didn't really pray for.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's the weirdest thing. I'm kind of living within an anomaly.
Yeah.
So like, which takes a lot of the pressure off, because I'm kind of a notorious perfectionist. I kind of mess a lot of things up with it. It's not a good thing. But with this one, I can kind of exist within an anomaly, so the whole thing's a mistake. So I can't really make any mistakes when you're living within a mistake.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
That's a
in the
really
weirdest way possible.
Yeah. That's a really compelling way to think about it.
Yeah. It's been helping me get through it because yeah, if you had told me, like, I was a scientist 10 years ago that had never sang a song for anybody ever in his life.
Yeah.
And like the idea of it, just singing a song in front of 3 people in a backyard would have made me like just crumble.
Yeah.
And, now things are different.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything's, it's a bit of a shift of life, a bit of shift of mind and all of that.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
So I always start this thing off with the same question, which is, how long have you been in town?
All right. Well, I moved to town in around 2001.
Okay.
I reckon, to be a scientist. I basically fled as a teenager, my southern Indiana small town, to really just, I was good at science. I was good at those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, hey, you should go to school and study that. And at first, I honestly thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. If anyone would have asked me growing up what he was going to be when he grew up, it would have been a veterinarian.
Yeah.
I was like always out in the woods. I loved animals. I loved everything about biology, applied sciences. I had like notebooks in my room of like biology notes that I took like extracurricularly, outside of my school time.
Yeah.
It was a really sad existence. My dad was really worried, but yeah, so like that's what drew me to Nashville. I knew I could study science at MTSU and I could live adjacent to Nashville where the songs were made. And that's really what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to do it. There was no career day path for me. So I used science as like a gateway drug to get into songwriting. Yeah.
And were you already writing songs at that point when you came down here? But
yeah, kind of in secret. I was playing in various bands. I was a guitar player. So when I got into music, I was a big guitar nerd. Like I got into like a music program in college, like playing in jazz bands.
Yeah.
I was able to kind of fake my way through a lot of auditions and pretend like I could read music. I picked up guitar when I was about 16. My dad got me a guitar. He kind of identified some kind of talent for it. And he got me a cheap guitar and an amp, and I just ran with it. And honestly, he could tell that's really what I wanted to do, and that's what felt the most natural for me. So I did that on the side while I was, doing all my science studies.
Yeah.
And so, but I also got to start, I was really into indie music. That was like my primary music of consumption during those years of college. And so I started playing in indie bands, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth as a performer, just as a guitar player and a songwriter, kind of behind the scenes songwriter guy.
Yeah.
And so that's where it really all started, and just me, writing songs and going to school, playing in indie bands. And I wrote like poems and stuff a lot on the side. That was like my little secret thing I did. My mama always used to write poems on junk mail and like throw them away.
Yeah.
And I used to catch her doing it, and I used to read them. I wish I still had them. But yeah, I thought, that was just such a great outlet for her, because she was going through a really, really hard time at that point in her life. I knew that. I kind of witnessed it.
Yeah.
And I address a lot of that stuff in my songs and music videos. But I saw that as an outlet for her, so I just kind of did it as well as kind of like mimicking her.
Yeah.
So that's where the songs kind of began. They all began with poems, so, and then they kind of turn into songs.
Yeah.
So that's, I just was in Nashville, I guess just trying to figure out how it all worked.
Do you know now? Can you tell? Okay.
No, I have no clue. I just knew I had this like 90-minute bus ride to school every day and 90-minute home bus ride. First kids on, last kids off.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. And it was all like county line roads and rural routes. And it was all country music the whole way to school and the whole way home. So I had a 3-hour country music immersion class.
Yeah.
Growing up, and I heard so many incredible songs written, and especially this song called Don't Take the Girl, which everybody knows, by Mr. Tim McGraw. I mean, it had been out for a long time, but when I heard it, I don't know, it just hit me in a way that just changed me. It was like a 3.5-minute movie, and I was able to kind of put my mom in the movie, and I was in the movie, and like it just helped me process a lot of stuff. And I was like, whatever wizardry that is, whatever just happened to me, that is insane. That I have to figure out the alchemy of that. And I think it happens in Nashville. My mama lived in Smyrna and Murfreesboro growing up. So it's weird that I ended up going to school there. But we'd always drive through Nashville, and just something told me like, hey, that's where the songs are.
Yeah.
And this guy named Larry Johnson and Craig Martin wrote that song. And I later found out, going to school here, this is exactly where it was made. And I kind of found my way into these writing rooms that, you saw all the bones of these songs constructed. And I was like, oh no.
Dear. I'm going to fall in this well.
Yes, I am. But yeah, that was, that's when I got song bit.
Yeah. That's a great word for it. When you were in school, did you go straight, I guess after school, did you go straight into being a scientist, or did you try and write songs somewhere, or like what was your journey?
Like right when I got out of school, I was in this indie band. My senior year I started, called Autobahn, and they're still, some of my dearest friends we met in college, and we started this band, and before I knew it, we had like a record deal and a manager, and we were touring with all these up-and-coming bands like Cage the Elephant, and we got to, go on all these huge tours, and I was a lead guitar player and songwriter in the band. And so right when I graduated, the guys were like, hey, you want to just try to do this for a year and just see what happens? We had like 80 shows booked, so I was like, that's going to be a lot. It's going to be hard for me. So I just went and got a serving job and waited tables to make money, and just went on the road with this indie band and lived in a van and played 1,000 shows with this band. Wow. And in front of literally the sound guy and the doorman, and sometimes in front of 10,000 people, and everywhere in between. Yeah. And that's where I kind of learned how to, perform as a musician and kind of see how crowd dynamics work. Yeah. And just really kind of got to see it all, but more from an indie rock perspective, and how to kind of soundscape and how to use dynamics in a different way. Because I grew up playing in worship bands and grew up real Pentecostally. So I grew up playing like kind of this dynamic worship music and watching the ebb and flow of music. So trying to apply that into like indie rock was what I found intriguing. And believe it or not, there was a lot of that in that scene. Yeah. There's a lot of recovering Pentecostals.
Yeah, I feel like the music industry is filled with like, especially in Nashville, the country music scene is filled with like a lot of like people that used to do metal, or people that grew up playing worship music.
Yeah, or Christian metal.
Yeah, that too. Petra.
Yeah, yeah. I actually listened to a lot of Christian metal.
Yeah.
I actually moshed in a church sanctuary to a band called POD. When I was like 17 years old.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
My first concert. I was 14. It was Story of the Year, Hoobastank, POD, and then Linkin Park.
Wow.
It's pretty sick.
Yep.
Never forget it.
Yep. Yeah, I got a bloody nose in a church sanctuary from moshing to a Christian metal band.
It's pretty sick.
Opening line to a new song.
Well, how did you, I guess, go from being in a touring indie rock band to a scientist?
Yeah, well, I was working as a bartender and a server, and I was getting these also like science contracts, because there's these companies here that do like staffing for scientists. Because I had this microbiology and chemistry degree that I spent 5 years, I busted my ass getting. So like, and I was in debt a lot to acquire it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I should try to use this, even though like, I'm still playing 100 shows with this band. But this company called Aerotech in Nashville would basically, they were staffing agents. Excuse me, they were a staffing agency for scientists and engineers and chemists, all that stuff. So I would get like these 2 or 3 week contracts to go work in a lab for a company, and that would be it. It'd be just like hands clean.
Oh, wow.
I could go work for 2 weeks, make like $25-$30 an hour, and go back out on the road. It was like, you don't work here anymore. It's done. If we need you, we'll call you, kind of thing. It was an awesome deal.
Yeah.
And then one company eventually tried to hire me because they liked my work. And I ended up passing on the job because we were too busy on the road. And the money wasn't super great. It was as a microbiologist. And then I started getting these contracts through this company, Mars, the Mars Food Company, to work for them. And I would just do these contracts, like I said, hands clean. And they just kept hiring me back, and it kept working out with the touring scheduling and all that stuff. So I just kept working there. And then one day they were like, we want you to work here, like full time, and here's a lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
Or at least a lot more money than you've ever made.
Yeah.
Poor kid from Southern Indiana. So I was like, I'd met my wife. We were very serious. She had a little boy that was 5 years old. And so it was it was probably one of the hardest decisions, definitely like top 3 hardest decisions I had to make to leave that band, because I truly loved it and truly loved them. And it was like such a huge part of me. But I also knew like this was the place I was supposed to go for whatever reason during that time period. It was like part of the transition to where I am now. So I took that job, and that job kind of saved me, to be honest, because I was in a really dark place at that time. I was homeless for like 3 months, and like literally living in a van down by the river. It was like, I was literally like a Chris Farley sketch. And I was just really poor. And, I could have went home and lived, with my dad. I didn't want to give up. And, I was just in a bad place. So that job kind of saved me at the time, to be honest. And kind of help me rebuild myself and kind of figure out what I really wanted to do. And also gave me, a lot of security. I also got to kind of jump onto the other side of the fence that everybody talks about when they're in the music business. Like, should I just go get a real job and do the whole thing? I literally got to kind of roll around in that grass. Yeah. And really, really feel it. And so, I worked there for, eventually, like I said, I just took the job, took the money, worked there for like 4 years, something like that. And eventually I had this boss that came up to me, and I was doing well there, and he said they're about to put the golden handcuffs on you. That's what he told me. Yeah. And I was writing songs, and he knew I was very serious in the music. He'd actually come and watch my band play, and he was familiar with my whole music career. Yeah. And he knew he'd asked me what I really wanted to do, and because of that band, I got put into writing rooms, and I kind of got to see how everything was made. And back to the Tim McGraw moment. Yeah. I was kind of chasing that career down, kind of in my head. I just didn't know how to get there. And he was like, dude, if that's what you really want to do, he's like, you're at a crossroads here. Like, you're about to get more money than you've ever made, and your whole life's going to change, and you're never going to be able to go back to being he's like, what do you make as a songwriter, your first publishing deal? I told him, and it wasn't good. Yeah. It's not good. Right. And he was like, it's like half at least what you're making here. So like, you're going to be making double what you're making here. You're not going to be able to go back. Yeah. And you're going to change your whole life, and everything is just going to be too complicated for you to blow it up. He's like, if I was you, I'd blow it up now. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I walked away from that conversation. The golden handcuffs thing just kind of sank in hard. Being kind of a word nerd, that was a really effective usage of words.
No doubt.
So about 6 weeks after that or so, I put in my 2 weeks, and I was out from like the best job. And, you know, I had very few people supporting me in that decision. My dad was very supportive. He was one of the few, and he was like my corner man and my coach through it all.
Yeah.
And I just literally left that job with no publishing deal on the table, nothing. I had some server experience because of, you know, working on the side in the band, and I was like, I'm not stopping until I can get a publishing deal. I just have to write songs. I don't know why I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And it got so intense there at that particular job. Like the, you know, I referred to it like this kind of noise. It wasn't really a noise because that's kind of dramatic.
Right.
But it was like a really annoying kind of pestering buzz kind of going off the whole time that I was there. And it kept getting louder and louder and louder. Like the more you just kind of, you know, you're not supposed to be here kind of buzz. That's only, if it had any kind of like translation from it, that's what it was saying.
Yeah.
And,
have you ever read this is a random reference, but whatever the Stephen King novel is on like the 11/22/60, it's like the JFK one where he's like, all those people are showing up, and they're like, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of how it felt in the moment, and like I said, it was kind of getting louder by the day, and as much as it annoyed me after that conversation, my biggest fear was walking into that office one day and the noise being gone. And so that fear scared me more than leaving the job.
Yeah.
So that's what really made me make that decision. Wow. So I'm kind of grateful for it, but it was like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And but like I said, my dad was like my guy through all of it.
Yeah.
So when I started doing this artist stuff, which, you know, was not on the table, I'm not supposed to be here either. So back to that. Yeah. But yeah, my dad, you know, he's kind of the centerpiece of it all. So
wow, it's beautiful
because of that.
Yeah. How long did it, after you quit your job, made the jump, how long did it take to like get your first publishing deal?
About 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I did like fine dining, food service, worked at 3 or 4 different restaurants. I made pretty good money. Yeah. And I would write with anybody and everybody in this town. And I stayed quite busy as an independent, just writer, playing. That's when I first started singing. It was like out of desperation. I, you know, couldn't just have somebody sing my songs every time I wrote a song. Yeah. So I had to start singing demos. I had to like figure this out. Like I left this incredible job, put my like family on the line. I put everything on the line for this. Like it's like, dude, you got to figure this out. And it's super lame, but like when I left that job, I was like, God, you gotta give me a voice, or like, well, you gotta give me something. Like I don't know what, you know. One kind of just showed up. That's the only way I can explain it. Yeah. And, you know, I was just playing writers rounds and everything I could play. And I would have publishing meetings with I'd send my weird songs. And, you know, I think they liked the craft of it, but they didn't see the value in it at all, especially in like this would have been 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a different dynamic going on in Nashville. And I was a square peg in a round hole for sure. Or I was a rhombus. I was a rhombus in a round hole. Yeah. And so that was, you know, it was a bit of a hard sell. And like I'd get some meetings, but like kind of we'll keep in touch. And we never did a lot of that happened, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I just kept doing what I knew how to do, because I didn't really know how to write a lot of the music that was currently popular. I just kind of stayed true to what felt right to me, like kind of what came from my roots, and like the indie rock roots, the Mellencamp and the George Jones and the Willie Nelson, all of that. I knew there was still a home for it. So I just kind of kept doing that. And this guy named Chris Oglesby from BMG, he heard one of my weird songs, and he brought me into his office like literally the next day. It was like within 24 hours of him hearing a song, and he told me, like literally in his words, he's like, I think you're ahead of your time.
Huh.
He's like, I want to develop you as a songwriter. He's like, you've probably never seen one of these before. And he printed off a publishing deal literally right there, like a.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And he's like, I don't know if anyone's given you one of these yet, but this is how serious I am.
Wow.
And he's like, this is just the start of a conversation. I'm not asking you to sign this right now. I just want you to know that this is a publishing deal. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's given you one yet, and no one had. Like, no one had even. And he was just, no one had even warmed up their printer yet. So.
Yeah. Well, he was being serious about it. You know?
He was like, and he's like, I think you're 5 to 7 years ahead of your time. And he's like, wow. I want to help get you there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And he was like an angel that just kind of showed up.
It's a little.
And he always has been.
It's a little lifeline in the void, that you can hang on to.
Yeah, totally. And and he heard a lot of my songs, and oddly enough, the first song he ever got recorded, it ended up not getting released, but it was like just shortly after that conversation, after the deal and everything, Tim McGraw recorded a song of mine, and because of Chris.
Yeah. So
it was like even though it didn't come out, it didn't matter. It was like a God nod.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the right place. This dude is your dude.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to give you a little nod as to why, because it kind of all started back to the don't take the girl moment. So.
Yeah. When you started writing songs at that was at BMG, right? Which I think, I'm trying to remember the first time we wrote a song. It's like probably 2017, 2018.
We wrote at Warner, I think, though.
Yeah.
The label building.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It would have been 2016, I bet.
Yeah, golly, it's like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Really. No clue what I was doing, and
neither.
Still don't feel that way.
Yeah, I literally was clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, especially being kind of the weird guy, But I thankfully had a publisher who just kind of let me be the weird guy.
Well, you were making something special, and that takes some vision from a lot of people to see that through. But did you feel like, as you were doing more and more co-writes, kind of in that, I mean, you were doing it before you got your first publishing deal, but also as the publishing deal happened, did you feel like you were starting to understand more about how to kind of like crack a song open like that? Like a song like Don't Take the Girl does, where it kind of hits you somewhere different.
I mean, I had so many like masters kind of show me how they do it. Yeah. So like the first 2 years, I just kept my mouth shut and just tried to really just go to songwriting school. Yeah. Like, you have the Tom Douglas laptop turnaround. Like I witnessed that several times where, we'd be trying to write a song and he would just kind of start drifting off into his laptop, and you'd turn around and there's a song. It's like, whoa, okay. Like, and then you have like the Jeffrey Steele who just kind of rides a wave, and you figure out how he just kind of pulls a song out of thin air, like David Copperfield. Yeah. And you got Craig Wiseman, and you have, his way of kind of like putting a song through a rock tumbler and coming out with a diamond. And like, there's this, I just saw everybody's process, and everybody was different. And everybody had so many methods that were so intriguing to me.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting to me as well, because a lot of my favorite songs of yours are songs that you wrote with people that you just referenced, like I think was Patches with
Jeffrey Steele.
Jeffrey Steele. And so you've got that song, and then you've got I don't know if it's called Holler or Holler from the Holler, but
Holler
that's
from
with
the Holler, yeah.
Craig Wiseman.
Correct.
And what's interesting to me is that both of those songwriters kind of have a different style.
Very much, yeah.
But when you do it, you got some coffee coming.
Oh, thank you.
It's cool to me because your uniqueness shines through in the song. So to me, those are two world-class, some of the greatest songwriters to ever do it, but they still sound like Stephen Wilson Jr. songs.
No.
And I think that's like a very, beautiful thing and like a unique skill set that you have that I think is resonating with people.
Well, thank you, Troy.
Yeah.
Well, I was just blessed to be in the room with those fellows. Like I said, I learned so much from them. Like with both of those, by the time we got to either one of those songs that you just mentioned, we'd probably written at least 30 songs.
Wow.
So like we kind of wrote 30 songs to get there,
Yeah.
even though we had a lot of great songs in that first 30.
Yeah.
But with Craig and with Jeffrey, we wrote just so many. Like they were willing to keep showing up, which just blew my mind. I was like, why do you keep showing up for me? Like, why? What do you see in? Like, you could write with so many people, and so, but they kept showing up, so I did too. And, and that just meant the world to me. And I feel like we found something really special through the attrition of it all.
Absolutely.
And they showed me that it's not about, writing gold, every day. It's just about literally showing up and kind of keeping at it and having faith in yourself. Really, that was the biggest lesson I learned of it. And kind of stay true to your process, because I never saw them change their process ever in those first 30 songs.
Yeah.
They still use the same pocket knife or whatever, to whittle away. And I was like, okay. And, they've had so much success before me and so much success now. And, they don't need me at all. So, and there's just so many other examples of incredible songwriters that taught me so much. Tony Lane, Travis Meadows, all that. Just really how to kind of swim through the heart and try to pull up a catfish of an idea.
Go deep, way in the deep end,
Yeah.
How did you start working with your producer? Had y'all worked together a lot, or was that like I don't know, when did y'all meet and start working together?
So Benjamin West, my boy,
the best.
I love him. He is the best West. But yeah, we met honestly in writing rooms. The first song he and I ever wrote together was a song called "Year to Be Young," 1994. Yeah, and it's been kind of a flagship song for me in my artist career and my writing career, for that matter. We wrote it literally the first year of my publishing deal. That had been 2016. Wow. And so we had this immediate chemistry. He's from Detroit. I'm from Southern Indiana. We had some parallels, even though we weren't at all. Like he's really who I strive to be when I grow up. I want to be Ben West when I grow up. Yeah. But he just has such a temperament and such, like, I work with him so easily. And he wasn't one of those producers or writers, for that matter, that really wanted to kind of change everything. He was really just so open to being like a firefly catcher, and not really having anything more to do with it than that. Yeah. And I think he kind of witnessed the artistry within me way before I did. And kind of, he would breathe life into it very subtly and silently, though. Like he would just do it with like the track, instead of like, he would show me instead of tell me. Yeah. And that meant beautiful. So much more.
Yeah. And his production style is such like I don't know how to describe it. It has such a warmth to it. It really brings it brings songs to life.
Yeah. That was a through line with everything we did. We would kind of do these little demos, and they were quirky. Like everything we would put out would get put on hold or something like that, because we'd make these weird little demos together.
Yeah.
And so when I started doing my artist stuff, he was like the first person I called, because we just had such a chemistry, and I loved the warmth of it, because that's something he and I are both going after. It's just like warm sounding music.
Yes.
I don't know why, but that was, something we definitely had in common, even though he came from a little bit more of a Motown and jazz and pop side of the world too. He had a huge indie rock background. Like, he knew who Godspeed You Black Emperor was. I didn't have to introduce him to that band, and he was like, I know exactly who that is. And
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you're my dude. Because in Nashville, there was nobody talking about the Silver Mount Zion or even like Death Cab or anything like that.
Right.
That was kind of where I came from. So when we started making music, even as songwriters, just trying to get cuts on Tim McGraw and Keith Urban records, we still did it the same way as we did my record.
Yeah.
Because we were just trying to create a sound that kind of cut through the noise more than we were trying to like make a record. And we ended up kind of stumbling into this sound.
Yeah.
And we just kind of just ran with it instead of being like, okay, it's got to be this, it's got to be that now.
Yeah.
You're making a record now, it's got to be different. It's like, no, it doesn't have to.
Right. Well, and there's so much, talked about this a few times with other guests on this podcast. It's like there's so much pressure to like homogenize what you're doing, to make something sound like something else. And I always feel like that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Because staying true to you and making something unique, even as a songwriter specifically, it's like having a interesting sounding demo is like an asset to getting a song cut, right?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed to be for us because, I was already kind of a left of center cell in a lot of ways. But yeah, we somehow figured out a way to kind of coexist in this town and with this sound, and people would, kind of keep talking to me about the demos, or be like, people would ask my publisher, like, who's singing these demos? Yeah. And so like that conversation came up somewhat early on, but I was like honestly so resistant to it because it didn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. Like it didn't click with me. And even my dad would be like, well, he would listen to my demos and he'd be like, you sound fine singing them.
Why don't you make a
Why
record?
don't you sing them? Why are you waiting for some other dude to sing this song? And I was like, I don't know, Dad. I don't sing them. I write them.
Yeah.
And it just was like a paradigm I just put in my mind as a line in the sand. Mm. And so when he died, that line in the sand just got washed away. Mm. And so I was like, okay, didn't really have anybody to argue with anymore. So in an attempt to kind of keep him alive and keep him around and honor his request, that's really what began the whole journey of making that record.
Yeah. When did you, was 1994 the first song that y'all made?
Yeah, that would have been, well, the first session we recorded, we did 4 songs. We recorded The Devil, Year to Be Young 94, Hometown, and The Beginning. So we started with 4 songs. Thank you. And that's kind of where it all started. I don't know why I chose those 4. I had plenty of other songs that are on the record, but I just didn't record them.
Yeah.
But a lot of them got written in that time period because there was like, I felt like it was a bit of a record keeping exercise the whole time. Like I was really trying to keep record of it. And so a lot of those songs manifested within the rec right after he died. But yeah, me and my sister and my brother got a $10,000 check from my dad. And so I got like a $3,333.33 check from him. Mm. And I spent all that on recording the first 4 songs. So I used his life insurance money to basically seed the first 4. And that song, Year to Be Young 94, kind of had a moment. Kind of blew up on TikTok and had some big playlisting moments. And so because I own the songs, like, and me and Ben did, and we just basically funneled every dollar we made from that song into recording the other 18 songs.
Wow.
So we recorded 18 more songs, and that's how Son of Dad was made.
Yeah.
It was literally paid for by my dad's life insurance money.
Wow. That's
And,
incredible.
yeah, it was a bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
And well, it was weird. Like I got woken up. 2 of the songs woke me up. But like I get woken up a lot in the middle of the night by songs or just in general. But it's always like at 3:33. I don't know why. Or right around 3:33.
Wow. Yeah.
And The Devil and The Beginning both. I wrote them at 3:30. Like I kind of got woken up by them and wrote them down because they all started off as poems. Like and turned into music later. But yeah, so like that little check, like, and that was all
started
the threes,
the whole thing.
The threes and the threes. I was like, well, I got to release those because that was kind of that's kind of was my logic into starting with those because of the. When I like numbers, numerology.
Yes,
started this all.
When you started making this music, I remember one of the things that I've always been sort of, to be honest with you, in awe of, and what you've done is these songs have these really compelling video components that go with them, and it seems far too intricate and nuanced to have just gone out and gotten a treatment from a music video director. So can you talk a little bit about the process of making those videos?
Yeah. I don't know what got into me to make those videos, but they've been just as important to me as the audio components of it. I don't really distinguish the two. So when I basically found this guy named Tim Cofield. He's a cinematographer, and I loved all his work. Everything I was doing had so many elements of the outdoors and so much movement outside, and his work really showcased that. He seemed to be really comfortable getting into pretty gnarly places, and I was wanting to go, like I wanted to shoot my first video out in the rain, like in like these weird speeds, and like and he was like, I'm down with it, like, and we did it for like no money, and like he made that video for $2,000. So and that's kind of where it all started, and that we just shot that out in a field. I had like this idea with the tape speeds because I wanted the character to feel like really anxious and agitated, but then, he had this incredible idea of the side characters moving in slow motion. And so we basically would collaborate on these ideas. I would kind of write a pre-treatment and he would kind of add his moments to it, and we would have this treatment. And so the Holler from the Holler video, which is probably one of my proudest videos, and the Patches video too, that was a fun one to write. Holler from the Holler is very much based off an experience I had as a kid. So I wrote a scenario from an experience of like, as one of my stepdads abusing my mother and grabbing a stone to bash his head in. And it ended up stopping him it's like a really early memory I have. So I took that memory and was like, what if it didn't stop him? Yeah. So I made that video as a response to like what would have happened, because I'm sure a lot of people are in that scenario, and sometimes like the best art is kind of a what if scenario. Yeah. And I wanted to show what that looked like, and it didn't look pretty. And because as a kid, that would have changed my whole life if I had done that. Yeah. It was like almost a way. It was very therapeutic in the darkest way to make that video. And Tim was like, "No, we're gonna make that video." Like he was so receptive to every component of it. Yeah. Like the crew and the actors and everybody really embraced my story on that one. That was like a real magical production because everybody really just kind of they believed it, and it wasn't like this made up thing. It was all rooted in something very real. Yeah, it's so interesting how you're like someone's very specific
story, and I just watched that video a couple of days ago. So visceral to watch. But I don't know how to explain this. Saying your specific story for some reason actually has like this very universal appeal. In that I think even when people don't have that specific story in their life, they like find it relatable somehow. And I think that that's true in a lot of your music. It is quite specific, but like it, I don't know, it resonates very deeply. And I think that's why so many people are hopping on the train, dude.
Oh, well, thank you, Troy. When we were writing that, actually, Craig and I wrote that on Zoom during the pandemic. Yeah. And it was the shortest song we've ever written. We wrote it in like 3 hours. And,
I've had
Craig really likes to write, and for good amounts of time. And I've learned so much from that whole process. But for whatever reason, it was just the shortest one we've ever written. We wrote it on Zoom, and he started calling me Holler from the Holler like 4 years ago. It was a nickname.
Yeah.
He'd be like, hey, Holler from the Holler, what are you doing? Yeah, that's what you holler, what you doing? That was like, he'd call me up, text me that. Yeah. And then we were writing on Zoom one day. He was like, Holler from the Holler, what are you doing? And I was like, just writing songs. We're in a pandemic. What's up, dude? And, he's like, Holler from the Holler, what does that mean to you? He's like, we should write that. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. And he knew a lot about me, Craig. After 30 songs, he learned a lot about my childhood and a lot of those things I just told you. There's very few people in this town that know about a lot of that about me, but yeah, I went into some of that with Craig, and I remember, I said I was, Craig, I was kind of quiet as a kid growing up. And, I just kept rambling on and on and on, blah, 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 blah. And then, the camera, kind of froze up on him. And I was like, you still there? And he was just sitting there repeating, like, I was kind of quiet as a kid growing up. I was kind of quiet. And I just broke down. I had to like, boop, I got to use the bathroom. And like, for whatever it is, like he just found that. And that's where it all started.
Man, it's incredible. Well, man, there's just so many more questions I'd love to ask you, but I guess I want to keep to the important questions. So,
oh yeah, sure.
I probably got time for two more, but
okay.
Are you, when Year to Be Young first started going viral.
Yeah.
What was that? 21, 22?
Probably like 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
23 really, maybe.
I just remember seeing the first video like on TikTok. You were playing at a radio station.
Yeah. Lightning 100.
Yeah.
Local.
Yeah. Yes.
Come on.
And, did you, in that moment, were you thinking like, this is going to change my life, or were you just
did that at like 9 a.m, thinking like, is anybody even listening right now? Like, I guess everybody was driving to work. So I was like, man, I've got to just sing on pitch. And I just like, you wonder if, anybody cares. Like, so I had no clue, like at that time, I didn't even know it was really being recorded. Like, they didn't do it secretively, but I wasn't thinking about me being
You're talking
recorded.
About somebody with their phone or whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, they had like a little just side camera up,
Gotcha.
And they recorded the audio, and they just briefly said, hey, we're recording a little video and audio for you, just for your use, whatever. And I was like, cool. Didn't even think about it for another second.
Wow.
Just played the song because it's live on the radio.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't like a pre-taped thing.
Right.
And and I was like, cool. And they were like, oh yeah, we recorded it, we'll send it to you. I was like, cool. And then we put it up, and it just blew up. Like, that was really the only thought process behind it. It had no intention. It was like, they were like, Alicia, my manager, was like, hey, you got this great recording from Lightning 100. We should put it up on TikTok. You've never put anything up on TikTok. And I was like, okay, let's try it. And literally, it was like the first thing we put up. Wow. And it just went bananas.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It's pretty sick.
Pretty wild. And then, the whole Reels thing and playlisting and just
well, it's all growing, but it's so cool because it's, stuff's going viral, but it's like there's no trick to it. That's what I admire about it. It's just it's honest and it's authentic, and I think that's what people resonate with, is authenticity. So, and
well, thank you.
You can't fake it.
Well, it was like a really just put it out there. I didn't expect anybody to watch it or listen to it. And
wow.
Yeah, things changed real quick. It was really bizarre, like when things took off like that. It's only happened like twice, but I get woken up sometimes, but I got like electrocuted in my bed that night. Like it was so weird. Like It was almost like something was like, wake up, like you don't want to miss this.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on? And like I opened my phone and like it's like the middle of the night and there was like whatever 500,000 views.
Yeah.
Like we just put it up like an hour, couple hours ago. And it was like a weird little like, whoa, like there's something going on.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I got one last question for you, and I like to ask everybody this, and this doesn't have to be, you don't have to answer this like in the context of music or whatever, but you certainly can. But if you could go back to a younger version of yourself that was kind of just getting started on this journey, what piece of advice would you give them?
Slow down. That would be the biggest thing. Slow down. Everything.
Yeah.
Like literally, I think that's the key to music is slowing everything down, because you can always speed it up.
Yeah.
But like things started off real fast for me, and I liked the speed, but I didn't learn really how to manage it. So
can you unpack that for me a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, everything from like playing a scale to thinking about what you want to say and how you want to say it. There's no race to the finish line. There's no race to write a song. Like slow down and figure out what you want to say. Slow down and listen. Which is something I feel I've always been a really quiet kid. So like I would have told myself to lean into that and don't be ashamed of it. So, because a lot of people, like the number one question I've probably been asked in my life is, do you ever talk? Like literally, because even though I've been talking now, but generally speaking, I've been a fly on the wall, a spectator, an observer. And lean into that. Don't be ashamed of that, because that's where all the learning happens.
Yeah.
Like someone will dig a hole right in front of you if you hand them a shovel. And that was a big part of it all. And I think everything from science to songwriting to guitar playing is a lot about slowing everything down and being able to take it all in.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, juice it all up later, whatever fashion you want.
Yeah.
And I guess I would tell myself just to, be honest with yourself, and don't be ashamed of where you came from.
Yeah.
Because like where I came from is very much who I am now. It's very much written all over the wall. But as a young kid, I ran away from where I came from as though I didn't belong there.
Yeah.
And, I was wrong about that. I wish I would have told myself younger, like, this place is going to mean more to you than you think.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, Troy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be a really special episode, so I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Can't wait to see it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Man.
Awesome. All right. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuetown.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenure Town community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.